Likutei Sichos, Chelik Chav Gimel, volume 23, the Sicha for Matos, Masei, and Menachem. This Sicha will explain the meaning of the name of this month, namely Menachem of. Also, it will discuss the true spiritual aspect of our tefillos, of our davening. As a means of introduction, briefly, to help us easier flow through the Sicha, the months of the Jewish calendar have names. Well, if you look in the Torah, originally they don't have names. It was the first month, the second month, the third month, and so on. However, as the Chazal tell us, that these names, Alu imahim mi Bavel, when they ascended, when they came up from Bavel to rebuild the second Beis Hamikdash, that's when these names came up. And of course the question is, do these names have a, so to speak, spiritual value? In other words, do they hold any weight? And the answer is absolutely yes. First of all, in halacha, when you write an official document, especially one as crucial as a get, God forbid a divorce decree, or a ksuba, you have to write the correct name of the month. And if you don't, then it becomes questionable as to the validity of that document. Another thing, we know in general, and the Rebbe always put great emphasis on this, that minhag Yisrael, a custom that is widespread amongst Jews, has great weight. Another thing to be familiar with, Golus, when we say that we're in exile, who is in exile? Well, of course we, the Jewish people, are in Golus, but then there is also, as the Chazal tell us over and over again, there is Golus Hashchina, so to speak, Hashem, the Shechina, the presence of Hashem, is also in Golus. Another thing to be familiar with, when the Chazal sometimes tell us Ein and then Ella, meaning they say, for example, Ein oimdim li'yispalel, you do not set yourself to pray, Ella only. Typically this means that it's great emphasis. This tells us that it's exclusively for that reason. Otherwise it could have just said, oimdim li'yispalel mitoich, whatever. However, they said it, Ein oimdim Ella. Ein Ella means that it's absolute emphasis that underscores that this is absolute. Another thing to be familiar with is the concept of bechira, choice. In general, as Siddhis explains, true choice applies only when the two things from which one is being chosen, or the several things, are all absolutely equal. You see, if you have, let's say for example, if somebody, I'm just using a random example, somebody craves an apple, and in front of them there are apples and oranges, and the word choice doesn't apply. Oh, I chose the apple. No, you didn't choose the apple. That's what you wanted, and that's what you took. However, if let's say one craves an apple, and there are two apples, or three or more, that are exactly the same. They all taste the same. They all have the same flavor. They all look as good as the other, and yet you say, I am going to choose this one over the others. That's where the true essence of choice applies. As Chassidus explains, another point, that bechira, true choice, especially when it comes from Hashem, is mushrash in atzmus. Literally translated, it is rooted in the essence of Hashem. In other words, it's beyond any whatsoever giluyim, levels of revelation, because levels of revelation, think about it in our realm, it's as if there is some aspect of rationale. Like I said before, if I want this over that, because this is what I need, that is not what I need, or this I need more than that. Whereas when they're all equal and I choose this is something that comes from the essence. And in the case of, as we'll see in the Sicha, in the case of Bnei Yisrael, we'll see how that applies to us, where it comes from the essence of Hashem. So let's get into the Sicha. The Parshios, Matos and Masei, are very connected to the month of Av. Where do we see that? Because always they're read either in Shabbos V'Vorachim, the Shabbos immediately preceding the month of Av, or on the first Shabbos of Menachem Av. And according to the famous statement by the Shalah HaKadosh, that the parashas of the week that are read around the certain events have a strong inherent connection to that event, that means that not only is there a general connection between Matos and Masei to the 3 weeks in general, but specifically to the month of Av. Now, what is the month of Av? As we mentioned in the introduction, the minhag Yisrael, the Jewish custom is to refer to it not just as the month of Av, but as Menachem of. And this actually has halachic ramifications to the extent that not only that it has to be written correctly, but it's brought down in halacha that if somebody just wrote the month of Menachem, that already counts, and it's a valid, in the case of a get or a ksuba, it's a valid document. Why? Because the word Menachem is inherently connected to Menachem of. Menachem means to console, to comfort. Now, what is this idea? What is really the idea behind it? If you think about it, like I said, what is the meaning of the word Menachem? It means solace, to console, to comfort. And what is of? Of means a father. For us, who is this, quote, father? Well, obviously, Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven. Now, if the name of the month would have been of Menachem, it would have made perfect sense. The Father consoles us, He gives us solace, He's going to bring the Geula, and so on. However, what is the name of the month? Menachem of. That means that the essence of the month is, the idea of this month is that the month consoles, brings solace to the Father. In fact, this is very reminiscent of the saying of Chazal. In the Gemara Brachas, it's brought down that it says over there that, so to speak, Hashem moans and Hashem is sad and He's in mourning. As it says there, quote, Oy loy la'ov shehigla esbanav, that woe is to a father that had to exile his children. That, so to speak, Hashem is in pain, and we console Him, or the month, the essence of the month consoles Him. This will help us understand this emphasis that we just made, that it's Menachem of, that we are consoling, we are bringing solace and comfort to the Father, to our Father in heaven. This will help us understand the connection to these two parshios, as we said that there has to be an inherent connection as they coincide. In Parshas Matos, Hashem directs Moshe to fight, to wage a war against Midian, who caused the Jews to sin, and as a result, a great plague broke out. And how does he term it? How does he define it? What is this war? What is the purpose, the objective? He says, Nekoim nikmas b'nei Yisrael me'esa banyanim. You should avenge from the Midyanim the honor, the avenging of the Jewish people, of the Bnei Yisrael. However, when Moshe goes and delivers this directive to the Jewish people, what does he say to them? That the purpose of it is Laseis Nikmas Hashem b'Midyan. This is to give the avenging of Hashem in Midyan. And as it says in the Sifri, that what Moshe was telling them, Loi Nikmas Basib Adam Atem Noikma. You're not over here out to avenge merely the honor and for the sake of a Basar Adam, a mortal being. Rather, you are going now to a holy war to avenge the honor of Hashem, quote, Misha Omar V'Hoya Olam, the one who created the entire world. So here we see a connection that it's not just about the honor of the Jews, it's about the honor of Hashem. Then, in Parshas Masei, we also see a parallel. What is that? It says over there, Hashem discusses how crucial and how important it is to behave properly once you get into the land of Israel. It says, "V'loi sitame yesa'aretz." You should not make impure, you should not defile the holiness of the land that you're going to live in. And Hashem concludes, because He says, "Asher ani shoichem b'seicha," because I dwell in it. Ki ani Hashem shoichem b'seicha b'nei Yisrael, because I am Hashem who dwells amongst Bnei Yisrael. So first Hashem says, do not defile the holiness of the land because I dwell in it. But then Hashem says, I dwell amongst Bnei Yisrael. And again, the Medrash, the Sifri, says on this, Chavivin Yisrael, how special and beloved and cherished are the Yidden, that even though that they may be Tameh, even though they may be in a state of impurity, Shechina Beinayim, the Shechina is amongst them. And then it says, it continues, it says, Chavivin Yisrael, how special and how beloved are the Jewish people. Shebekom mokim shegolu, any place that they've been exiled to. Shechina imayim, the Shechina is with them, and when they return, quote, Shechina imayim, the Shechina is with them. So what do you see from this? What can you conclude from this? That the Galus is not only a Galus for Yidden, for the Bnei Yisrael, but rather it's a Galus for the Shechina itself, because the Shechina itself, quote unquote, returns when the Jewish people return by the redemption. So this, we just established what Menachem means, the connection to Matos and Maseh. But this needs all to be understood. You see, bottom line, what we just said is that Menachem Av emphasizes that the Nechama, the comfort, the consolation is for the father. The solace is for the father. And there seems to be absolutely no mention about a Nechama, about a solace for the son, for the Bnei Yisrael. Now, if we're talking about great, lofty tzaddikim that are on an extremely high level, where their whole purpose and endeavor in life is exclusively for Hashem, we can understand. Why? Because their whole concern in life is what's good for Hashem, so to speak, what's good for the Shekhinah, and therefore when the Shekhinah is in Galus, this totally bothers them, and therefore their whole focus and is exclusively Menachem Av, to console the father. Even if we were talking about the average Jew, that although they may be not at such a lofty level, but still their pain in Galus, their inadequacy as a result of the Galus, is also somewhat of a spiritual one. As we say in the davening on Yontif, that because of the Galus, we are now prevented, we're not able to go up and do our service in the Beis HaMikdash as should be. Okay, so this in a sense is, quote, a pain of the father. It's a pain that's related more to the father, more to the Shekhinah. Okay, but this would be true. So this is even, but still, this is a loftier Jew. But we're talking about your average Jew, your regular person, your regular Jew. How can you say that for this regular Jew, his pain is not literal? His pain that he feels the galus is in a little sense. He feels it literally. He feels the challenge of galus, which translates into tsaris from the goyim, all the problems that we have, all the persecution, problems with parnasa, problems with day-to-day life, everything that bothers us and aches us. How can you say for this Jew that the whole objective is Menachem Av, about consoling the father? It would seem that there should be somewhat of an objective and something to do about consoling the child, in this case the Yid, because the Yid feels it in a literal sense. You're talking about a Jew like myself, a regular guy, and just there's a problem because we're in Golus, things are difficult. Because in Golus there's anti-Semitism, because we're in Golus we have a hard time making a living, because we're in Golus there are all kinds of all kinds of illnesses and all kinds of problems. So the Rebbe says we'll understand this by prefacing a parallel concept in the subject of tefillah, of davening. We know the Chazal say, Ein oimdim lihispalel el mitoch keved rosh, that you do not position yourself, you do not approach davening only mitoch keved rosh. What is keved rosh? So it means gravity, that you have to come with a seriousness. You don't just start davening. You have to prepare yourself and set your mind. However, what is the literal translation of the word koived roish? Koived means heaviness, like a pain, an ache, roish of the head. So the Maggid of Mezrich says on this, from a Hasidic perspective, from a subliminal perspective, that what does it mean? That when you daven, you don't daven only for your own deficiencies, for the things that you need. But rather, what you daven for is for the roish, the reish of the chol reishim, for the head of all heads. Meaning that whatever is kiviyachol, so to speak, lacking and a deficient in the Shekhinah, that the Shekhinah is not in the world, that the Shekhinah is not, so to speak, enjoying all its needs, which is, its need is to spread into the world and to permeate every aspect of the world. Which means, as the Maggid says, that although if you look into the liturgy, you look into the actual words of davening, you seem to be asking for your personal needs, your kavanah, says the Maggid, your intent is that it shouldn't be deficient le'ela, up above. And he says, because he says the neshama is chelik l'kami mal, is literally a piece of Hashem from above. And it's like a limb of the limbs of the Shekhinah. It's like a part of the Shekhinah. And therefore its main request, its main desire, the neshama, when it's in the body and it davens, is that everything should be fulfilled, and it should be yushpa le'ela, it should be mushpa above. Of course, on this we can ask the same question almost. Those who are on a very high level, great tzaddikim, that this would apply to them, no, makes sense. But most Yidden, your average person, when you're davening, you feel your body. You feel your physical needs, your material needs, and it bothers you. And when you don't have it, it plays a role in your life. It matters to you, and therefore, how could you say the words of the Maggid, how can it apply? And not only that it applies in general, in a very lofty manner, in a subliminal manner, but you say, Ein oimdim lehispalel ela. That means, ultimately, this is the exclusive reason why we daven. Not because you're asking for your needs. Not because you're doing what actually the mitzvah is, that if you feel a need, you have to daven for Hashem. Oh no, you don't feel yourself. But I do feel myself. How can you say that I'm davening exclusively, Ein, Ella, I'm davening exclusively for the purpose of what Hashem needs? Now, it's true that the body is the exclusive property and in ownership of Hashem. But that doesn't answer the question. Because at the end of the day, when I daven and I think the meaning of the words, what are the meaning of the words? All kinds of needs that I need, that I can relate to. I, meaning not the neshama, not in a lofty level, but I down here in this world, physically, materially, what I need. But according to the Pirush of the Maggid, it seems like that exclusively we daven only for the needs of Hashem. And therefore we must reach a conclusion. What is the explanation here? We must reach a conclusion that indeed, when a Yid davens, and it seems that he intends, he thinks about, what is his kavanah, about the things that he needs in a literal sense. But subliminally, on a very deep level, his tefillah is also about the deficiency, so to speak, of Hashem, what Hashem needs. What is the meaning in this? How do we explain it? You see, in a literal sense, or at least if you look at the surface, when you try to contrast the soul and the body, it seems obvious that the soul, the neshama, is greater than the body. It's much higher than the body. But the truth is, when you look closer, you look deeper, we actually realize that there's a fundamental difference between the neshama and the body. You see, the neshama is inherently chelik elikami mal, as I said before. It's a piece of Hashem. So in other words, it's inherently unique. It's different. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like the neshama. There's nothing to compare it to. However, the body, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, outwardly at least, in its material sense, in its chumriyos, it's exactly the same as the bodies of Goyim. No different. And Dafka, specifically the bodies of the Yidden, the Gufes B'nai Yisrael, is where Hashem made the Bechira. That's where Hashem shows. When we say Ata V'chartonu, it refers to the body. Asher Bo Charbonu refers to the body. The Bechira over here is a Bechira Atzmis. It comes from the essence of Hashem. This actually makes the body greater. This puts the body in a greater, higher level than the neshama itself. Why? Because in the neshama, like we said, the idea of bechira, the whole idea of choosing, doesn't apply. Because there's nothing that parallels it. And therefore, how do we explain it? The neshama is, of course, very lofty, very holy, but really it comes from what we call the dargos of gilui, of revelation. It's a revealed manner. It's something, in other words, it's a very, very high level, but it's a level. Whereas the body that Hashem chose, this is bechira, this is absolute choice, this is beyond any level. This comes beyond any rationale. This is atzmus itself. This is atzmus itself. As the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that bechira, true choice, is only in atzmos, and he says, quote, she'ein lo ila v'siba shekot mechas sholem. There is no rationale. There is no reasoning or rationale that can trigger it in any way. According to this, it comes out that the existence of the body, the mitzias of the body, and all its needs is connected on the deepest level to the highest level, beyond the highest level, to atzmos of Hashem. This is actually like an expression of Hashem. And according to this, we can already get an understanding. When a Yid davens and he asks for his needs, his needs, his bodily needs. This is not a contradiction to what the Maggid said. Why? Because when the Yid davens, he feels a deficiency, he feels a need in his own personal gashmistic needs. Bottom line, this is an expression of atzmus that's expressing itself through his body. And that's why when he davens and he has intent for what he physically needs, money, health, whatever it is, deep down, what he really is asking for is who that body is connected to, who chose that body, and that is, in other words, there is a need in Hashem, so to speak, and that expresses itself in the body through the body's needs. That is the signals that we pick up on. Our sensors don't pick up atzmus, our sensors pick up our literal needs. But really what's triggering those sensors is the needs of atzmus. Likewise in the idea of Menachem of. Since every single Yid is, quote, a son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moreover, as we just explained, not only a child of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but that Hashem chose us. So the fact that a Yid feels the challenge and the pain of Galus, physically in a literal sense, in the pnimius of the matter, in the subliminal aspect of it, this is the pain of Hashem. This is not just our pain, but it's the pain of Hashem. And that is the ultimate pain in all of this. Just like by davening. So it seems like it's our pain that we're feeling. But what we're really feeling is that deep down is this pain of atzmos, the pain of the Shechina, as the quote, the Shechina went into Galus, and the Shechina needs to return and go out of Galus. And according to this, we'll also appreciate another medrash in Sifri. It says over there, Rabbi Nassan says, the one we quoted before, Chavivim Yisrael, how special are the Yidden, that any place that they went to Galus, Shechina is with them, and they return, Shechina is with them. But what happens afterwards? Rabbi Yehuda says, he adds to this, and he says, Lamar David Omer, he gives a parable for this. He says the parable is a king that said to his servant, listen, if you ever need to find me, if you ever seek me, you ever looking for me, you should know that I'm with my I'm by my sons. Anytime you look for me, you should know I'm by my sons. And how does he conclude that, Rabbi Yehuda? He says, and so it says in the pasuk, that Hashem, quote, dwells with them. He lives amongst them, even in their state of impurity. Now, if you think about it, what really did Rabbi add to this statement, Rabbi Nassan? Rabbi Nassan said that Hashem is with us in the Galus. He said it, that when they go back, Shechina goes back. So what more is Rabbi saying? What is he adding? The answer is, look at the words closely. Rabbi Nassan said, Chavivin Yisrael, that the Jews are loved, they are cherished, they are special. Well, once you give a definition for why they're unique, in this case you said they're loved, they're special, Chaviv, this already is an indication that it has a connection more to the neshama, where there is, quote, a rationale for that love, for that appreciation of it. However, Rabbi Yehuda is going even deeper. He's talking about the goof of the year that's in Golus. And therefore he brings the pasuk, Hashechen itam b'sheich tumasam, that Hashem dwells with them in their tumah. Tumah, impurity, has no connection whatsoever, in any whatsoever way, to the neshama. The neshama cannot become impure. It's only the body that can become impure, chas v'shalom. And there is the emphasis that Hashem is there even with them. So I didn't finish the whole entire Sicha. There's more to learn. But however, we'll jump over to the Hayrah, to the directive. The Rebbe says, since the entire month is called Menachem of, that we have to, so to speak, console Hashem, bring joy, inject joy into it. And it's not just after Tisha B'Av, post Tisha B'Av, when we begin reading the Haftarahs, the Shiva de Nechamta, in which we start to read about the consoling and rebuilding of Jerusalem. No, the whole entire month is called this. Menachem Av is from day one, even as we're experiencing the challenges of the destruction and the calamities of it. So this tells us that right from the beginning of the month, we need to increase in joy. What is the ultimate joy? Increase in diligent study of Torah. And like the Rebbe always emphasized and made a big campaign out of this, to increase in siyumim, in making completion ceremonies of Masechtos, which this, as we know, inherently is calls for a simcha, and this is allowed according to halacha, even in a time when halachically we have to be in a state of mourning.